Okay. Well, with that, let's sing Misha Berov all together. Oops. Sorry about the blessing back. I mentioned to Benjamin that I'm learning guitar. I'm also learning how to do a computer mouse and a guitar with a pick at the same time. So here we go. May the source of strength bless the ones before us. Help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing, refuge, all right. Thanks, everyone. With that, let's flow right into our Torah blessing. Briefly, this is a soccer field in Tel Aviv, which I thought was nice and celebratory since I wanted to celebrate doing Torah with all of us together. We'll say the Hebrew and then we'll say the English. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivlanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah. And let us all say, Amen. All right. This last word where it says commanding in the bottom left-hand corner, very fitting because this Parshat is Parshat Tzav, which means command. So the big ideas, which we are going to delve into and focus on during our time together, are, number one, this Shabbat, starting tonight, is Shabbat Hagadol. So we'll explore what that means, or more specifically, why that tradition came to be. Two, we'll focus on how this parasha is where we get the concept of the Ner Tamid, the eternal light. Three, we'll also explore how this parasha occurs in the book of Leviticus, and Leviticus is a priestly text. And priestly texts have many, many characteristics, one of which that features prominently in Parshat Tzav is a colophon. That's a fancy word, but I promise you it's interesting, and we'll get into it very soon. So with that, to start out, Shabbat Hagadol, what we're looking at is a view of one of the main highway interchanges near Jerusalem. So Shabbat Hagadol is sort of the great Shabbat, the giant Shabbat. It's the Shabbat before Pesach, the Shabbat before Passover. And what we're going to focus on is why? Well, okay, there are many meaningful Shabbats, or let's say prominent Shabbats that occur during the year, every year. Why this one? Why the one before Pesach? Of all of our options, do we call this one, or did this one come to be called Shabbat Hagadol? Well, there are a few potential explanations. The first stems from the Haftarah. Now, I think just in case, the Haftarah report refers to the reading after the Torah, usually from the book of the prophets. So the reading from one of the readings, the primary reading for the Haftarah this week with Parshat Tzav, is Malachi chapter 3, verses 4 to 24. And Malachi is the last book of the book of Nevi'im. So just big picture, we've got our Tanakh, that's the Bible, we've got the Torah, the Pentateuch, and we've got the Nevi'im, the prophets, the Ketuvim, the writings. So Nevi'im, very last prophet, Malachi. And the name, if you're looking here, the name Malachi means literally my messenger. So varying traditions, various rabbinic traditions suggest that Malachi, well, okay, maybe it's a title, or maybe it's Ezra the scribe. Ezra, there's also a book in our Tanakh named after Ezra, prominent scribe from Babylonia. Or one more tradition, maybe Malachi refers to Mordechai. Okay. The rabbinic tradition, the prominent stream of thought within the rabbinic tradition, holds that Malachi is the prophet's name, meaning the name of the prophet. It's like Amos or Jeremiah or Isaiah, Malachi, opposed to like a title. So, if, in other words, if, it's not the exclusive, but the prominent strain of thought within the rabbinic tradition means that the book of the name Malachi is a name like any other name. And as with most of the Nevi'im, the prophets, Malachi's main message is repent, turn back and follow the commandments. So this verse, chapter 3 from Malachi, verse 23, again, this is part of the Haftarah. I wanted to call it out because this is where one of the potential explanations for Shabbat HaGadol comes from. So I'll read the English here. Behold, I am sending Elijah, the prophet, to all of you before the coming of the great and fearsome day of Adonai, Yom Adonai HaGadol v'Hanorah, the great and fearsome day of Adonai. So what we're looking at here is the textual source for one of the traditions around like, okay, where did this Shabbat come from? Well, how does Malachi see this happening? It happens according to the very next verse. So this first one is verse 23. The next verse down here is verse 24. And I'll read that in English now too. God shall reconcile parents with children and children with their parents, lest I will come and strike the land with utter destruction. So how does Malachi see repentance happening? His main message is for parents to reconcile with their children and vice versa. That's the conclusion of the book of Malachi and the conclusion of the book of Nevi'im. It's a powerful message, a powerful conclusion that speaks to the strength and the importance of those relationships. And it's also where we're going to do, picture this as like a Jeopardy daily double. A translation mini deep dive. Woo! Why? Because this last verse is the subject of a lot of both Hebrew and rabbinic study. I'll read it one more time, first in Hebrew, then in English. Vehashiv lev avot al banim, velev banim al avotam. God shall reconcile parents with children and children with their parents. And if you'll indulge me for a couple minutes, we'll explore why I wanted to do this deep dive, because I think it's very instructive as to the choices that translators and clergy and lay people, everyone makes when we study the Torah. So here is it in larger font in Hebrew, Veheshiv lev avot al banim velev banim al avotam. Now I'm going to focus in on a couple of these key words. Lev avot. You know, I imagine many of you know this, but just off the top of your head, lev, you know, heart, and then we have lev banim. So avot, let's say parents, so hearts of parents, banim, children. So we're starting off with, this is the literal translation, fathers' hearts and sons' hearts, okay? And we'll focus on another part of the text. Here we have again, banim and avotam. Banim, okay, sons, we have that again. Avotam, the on the end of the fathers, that's a possessive. So that's meanings not just any fathers, you know, the fathers of the children that we're referring to here. Okay. And then the next one, the key word in this case, or for the purposes of this study, the verb, vehashiv al. Okay, we're going to zoom into this again here. Vehashiv al. The root is shin vav bet. And it means, the root of it, to turn back or to return. So oftentimes in many renowned verses, you'll hear the word shuv. It's also an imperative word in Hebrew. This is the causative form. And in the causative form, this verb can mean one, to cause to return. It can mean to restore, or it can mean to bring back. To cause to return, to restore, and to bring back. So starting to put it all together a little bit here. Oops, sorry, let me go back to my sequence here. My apologies for that. Here's the verse that we just read using those 1, 2, and 3. 1. I'll read them all in English and I'll try and go slow. 1. God shall cause parents' hearts to return to their children and children to their parents. Here's 2 in the middle. God shall restore parents' hearts to their children and children to their parents. Here's 3. God shall bring back parents' hearts to their children and children to their parents. These are all, I would say, I have it here on the top, at the top of the slide. They're all literal translations. They're closer to the pure meaning of the causative form of veheshiv lev, cause the hearts to return, restore the parents' hearts to their children, bring them back. Now, let's compare the idiomatic translation. The idiomatic translation is like what you'll find if we're just talking in ordinary English and you just get the point across because you're a native speaker. This is specifically, if you open up a Bible that has the Jewish Publication Society translations from the most recent translation in 2023, or the one 2 times before that in 1985, it'll say, God shall reconcile parents with children and children with their parents. Now, for those of you that like to look at things like yours truly, what you have here on this slide is you have the Hebrew in the middle, and what we're comparing on the left is one of those literal translations that I read a moment ago versus the idiomatic translation. And now I'll read them again once more again so we can kind of get the feel of how they compare. Literal translation. God shall bring back parents' hearts to their children and children to their parents. Idiomatic. God shall reconcile parents with children and children with their parents. And, this is a bit of an indulgence and a bit of a deep dive. I appreciate y'all bearing with me because, as someone who likes to study these texts, they feel different. It's a different thing to say, Malachi, prophet, huge message, closing the book of the prophets, the book of the Nevi'im, bring back parents' hearts to their children, versus reconcile parents with their children. As someone who's also just loves etymology and is fascinated with the English language, those mean different things, at least to me, because in my humble opinion, bringing back hearts, reconcile to me means patching up, making whole, potentially a positive connotation. And as someone who's also a student of human nature, that's sometimes a bridge that I'm not sure can be crossed in every relationship between parents and children. So, hence why I wanted to do this comparison. And the question that you see here at the bottom is, which resonates with you? I would love to hear some examples of why that may be. So we'll go Benjamin first, and then we'll go Penina, and then after that.
Well, thank you. I like the literal better. To me, it encompasses the idiomatic, reconcile. But when one says, my heart is in it, or, bring your heart, that's, you're really putting everything, again, this is my interpretation, the psyche, emotion, strength, all of that is in it, where reconcile is just a bit more mechanical to me, where these, I think of in a court of law, yes, we can reconcile the terms of this agreement and go forward, but I still may not like that business partner that I've reconciled with, but I'm doing things to move forward. Whereas if I say, hey, my heart is in it, and I'm going to really put my heart kind of love. To me, it's stronger.
I
That
so
makes
appreciate you're mentioning. Like I had not seen that at all, Benjamin, and that makes total sense to me. I really appreciate your sharing. So Susan, I'll come get you in a minute. We have Panina first, then we'll have you after that. So Panina, if you want to share your thoughts, yeah.
I think, can you hear me?
Yes, okay.
I think that by reconciling, it will bring back parents and children. It's not one's against each other, it's one helping each other. And the whole idea is that they took the equation of a God from this action. They leave it to the people. By reconciling, it means that you are thinking about it and you are weighing the situation and you are looking at reasons. And you took out, here it's actually up to the people. So you took the equation of God as the one who actually really gave you this commandment, but the equation of the action itself is out. It's up to the people. And by reconciling, it will bring them back to understand each other. And the whole idea is that they just left Egypt. They were slaves. They weren't allowed to think for themselves. They were following other people's commands. They had many, many gods involved. And God, the idea of a God, that it says God will reconcile, is actually to take it away from the God and give it to the people. Let them do the work of understanding what's going on. And it's a beginning of being totally free. It's not what God told you to do, it's what you understand that will be good for you. By that, you'll appreciate that God that took you out of Egypt and appreciate your freedom and your ability to make choices and to move forward to wherever it is that He thought that they'll be in their own place without having to follow directions or laws of other nations. The whole idea was Ve'ashivoti banim lebeitam. It's not just le'avotam, it's lebeitam. You are also bringing people to their home. So it's the whole idea is to let them or to appreciate the fact that they can make choices. And I think was very important. That's what brought the Shabbat. Pesach, it's like having the Shabbat all over again, like for 8 days. It's the idea that you are in control. By helping to get to the point of freedom, you have to make the choices and navigate. That's how I look at it. And again and again, I'm always looking at I have a teacher who was very smart, and he said that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur and Shabbat, it's like having sex. When you have it, you enjoy it, you have the Shabbat, but it's a lot of work. You have to clean the house and you have to cook and you have to do, but then after a week, you want it again. After a week, the Shabbat comes and you're wishing it to come. And you know that it's going to take work and you know that it's going to take togetherness. And yet you say, oh, it was so much work. But then after a week, you want it again. So I was always laughing and remembering his name was Tzvi Ben Yehuda. He was really, really Orthodox Jew, but he was a unique person. And he wrote for the Jewish News every Friday in Cleveland. But when he said that Rosh Hashanah and Shabbat are like sex, I always used to always, okay, let's see. And then it makes sense.
A great teacher.
You want it again, but it's by choice.
Yeah. And I so appreciate thank you, Benina. That's beautiful. And it's your comment in the beginning about how they help each other that hit me too in a good way. Susan.
So getting back to what your question was, with the two words. First of all, I don't see God in here, and Shabbat. So, but we were talking about the Shabbat HaGadol. What I see, first of all through this was a comparison with the high holidays. You're using the same kind of terminology, shuv, to
That's
return, to return to God. So I see that as a strong connection. and the Haggadol. I mean, it was the high holidays or the holidays Haggadol. Here for the two specific things that you ask, I think there's a difference between bringing back the word and reconcile. Bringing back seems almost like children have strayed or parents have strayed. There's a distance between them. So bringing back is bringing back together. Reconcile has some sort of there was some division. When you reconcile disagreements between people or arguments between people. You had said to make whole because you bring the different parts in, so that would be the conclusion. But there's some element with reconciliation that has a prior disagreement.
Yes.
Falling apart. So I think it's different. And for me, I prefer the bring back because I mean, because I didn't have these strong disagreements with my parents. So it would be bring back to come together again. Reconcile would be, yeah, I accept that, you're a Republican, I'm a Democrat, or vice versa, or something like that. So I think there's a difference, and for those who have had serious disagreements with their parents or vice versa, then reconcile holds a little more. For me personally, bring back would be, although I don't know that I didn't stray that much, but bring them together again. I think that's more positive, but it depends on the prior circumstances.
Yes. I mean, I love language, Susan, and I really appreciate your sharing that. I especially, as at least in my own personal brain, like your comment about how bring back implies like a distance or maybe straying, like that was like, yeah, okay, that's why maybe it means different inside my own head. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Oh, Merle, yeah. Would you please? Yeah.
I feel like you can't do one without the other, but it depends on what the situation was that you would have to reconcile. So bringing back establishes one kind of relationship with parents and their children, and reconcile depends on what the situation was that caused you to have to come back or to reconcile. I don't think you can just decide which one you like or which one is better for you. I feel like you have to examine the whole situation, so you need to look at both directions.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. And I think each of you has underscored how, and Brad, I'll get you in just a second. Each of you has underscored how, see if I can do it in real time here. I had the word verses on the slide. We're going to take out verses because I think that you all have helped me see how verses isn't the right way to present the comparison. It's missing, it's incomplete. Anyway, so thank you, Merle. And Brad, yeah, please.
Yeah, Tim, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to go in a totally different direction.
Please.
As to why you'd have a great Shabbat before Pesach. And, we typically think of Shabbat as being relating to Genesis. But what if it relates to Exodus, to Egypt, and how we worked day and night in Egypt? So to an extent, if you don't observe Shabbat, metaphorically, you're back in Egypt. So to me, there's a clear connection between then observing Shabbat and Pesach.
Oh, and enthusiastically. And Brad, I feel like I'm spoiling a bit of the surprise that's going to come for number two. The number two topic around like why Shabbat Haggadol may be what it is I think very much in the spirit of what you just articulated. And I think my memory is that like I think every time we've studied together, you've you've done that. You've been like, oh yeah, well, what about this whatever? And it's exactly what might be coming next, which is really cool. So thank you. And that's a fabulous transition. So, and in general, thank you all so much. I can't tell you how much I was enthralled by the way you all encountered this question, and I really appreciate going on this journey and exploration together. So let's pick up and transition basically right where Brad left us. As a recap of where we are, we're discussing Shabbat Hagadol and why that might be the case. And our first reason was Malachi, the prophet, referring to, I'm going to go back. Yom Adonai Hagadol v'Hanorah, the great and fearsome day of Adonai. That's sort of the first option. Number 2 is going to be where Brad took us, which is the Passover miracle. So what we have on the screen are excerpts from Exodus chapter 12, verses 3, 7, and 12. I'll read them in English here. Quote, on the 10th of this month, each of them shall take a lamb to a family, a lamb to a household. Quote, they shall take some of the blood of the lamb and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel. For that night, I will go through the land of Egypt and strike down every firstborn in the land of Egypt. Now, I'm going to focus on a couple key words here. On the 10th of this month, for that night. Those words are key because, according to the rabbinic tradition, the 10th of the month, when this happened, was the 10th of the month of Nisan in the year of the Exodus, which was, drumroll, Shabbat. So there's a interpretation of the literal text in the Exodus that suggests Shabbat Hagadol, meaning this was the Shabbat of the great Passover miracle. Thus, this is why it's Shabbat Hagadol, because literally the Bible says on the 10th of this month, that was the 10th of the month of Nisan. In that year of the Exodus, that was Shabbat. So here we go again, right? That's Passover. That's number 2. And number 3, this is, I won't spoil it. Number 3 is extra long sermons. Whee! Yay! I was excited about extra long sermons. That's tongue in cheek. No, when I first read this, I thought it was like a tongue in cheek or maybe like a humorous type thing. But no, this is a very real tradition where on Shabbat Hagadol, there is a long, we're talking like, found one source, I think it was in the 1100s or 1200s, describing how on Shabbat Hagadol, the sermons were extra long. So either quick show of hands or quick, does anyone have memories of extra long sermons they remember from Shabbat Hagadol? I'm just curious if anyone that registered with anyone.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Panina. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know about the sermons. I think the whole idea is that they went out on the 15th. And the Shabbat before was, or Shabbat when it maybe happened that close to Shabbat. The 15th was chosen because it was a full moon. And that's why the tide went up. And when the tide went up, they were still able to cross, but the chariots of the pharaohs couldn't. And it was very well planned by Moses. He was very smart. And he lived in the desert, we have to remember. When he ran away from Pharaoh the first time, he lived in the desert and he saw the way the weather was affecting the areas where he was. And when the middle of the month, the moon is full, so it gave them light. And that's why the whole idea of Hoshech ve'or, one of the plagues were darkness and light. And that they chose this also because when there is a full moon, the tide goes up. And it was perfect to go through there by foot because they didn't really cross it. They went sideways. And I saw archaeologists explain it many times today, even on maps, that they didn't have to go through. They went on the side because when the moon is up, the tide is on. And it helped them. The idea was to make the chariots of Pharaoh get stuck in the mud so they wouldn't follow them. Everything was so well planned. And Moses was a person And yes, he was inspired. And of course, they give a lot of credit to God. And yet it was a God that you cannot see. You can only see the results, the strength of what happened. So the idea that you adapt according to the circumstances or the happenings to the help of above, something forceful that you cannot see, also will help them believe in a God that you cannot see, not like the gods that they believed in or were forced to observe their what do you say it, like the way they serve those gods, the idols, and now they are without one. They have the one that they cannot see that's going to lead them, and yet to put the whole thing together makes it a great Shabbat, a great time. The idea that, yes, you didn't have this idol in front of you, and yet somebody made the decision. People also made decision by following. It was take a lot out of a person to say, I'm coming too. And so you call it a great Shabbat Gadol because that was the moment where they actually showed initiative, that they chose to go. They chose to follow him. And it was still a person. That's why till today we call it also Torah Moshe. We always call it the Torah of Moses. And that's supposed to also tells you that the whole idea was to give the initiative and the way, the opportunity and the strength to think for yourself, to make decisions. And I think that's a big deal to separate people from machines. So I would call it a very, very big Shabbat. So, and definitely, yeah. And we should celebrate the fact that we did what we did, and we made choices, and we didn't have an idol to follow. We followed the person who came up with a great 10 commandments that make the whole world today follow. So that's a big thing. I would call it Shabbat Gadol, definitely. For my own reasons.
I like it.
Okay, thank you.
And for the record, even though will soon be a rabbi and aspiring clergy, I do the specific examples around extra long sermons. We're talking like the rabbinic literature suggests like the entire afternoon, which would have been like 5 or 6 hours, maybe 7. So I hope that none of us have or need to encounter that. Let me put it like that. But even though that would have been a lot of learning, goodness knows, give clergy or aspired clergy a chance to talk. And my goodness, we like to talk, but that's a lot of talking. So, all right. Oops, sorry. So recapping potential explanations. This is in addition to the one that Penina just articulated. Malachi, the Haftarah, on that date, great day, Yom Adonai Hagadol v'Hanorah. The Passover miracle from the text of the Exodus, and extra long sermons. Whee! Just kidding. All right. With that, I mentioned before, but I just want to make sure and give it a nice, solid, clear visual. Parshat Tzav, early in the book of Leviticus, Tzav means command, like imperative, as in the literal word comes from Tzav et Aharon, command Aaron to blankety blank. So Parshat Tzav, command. Accordingly, for the Peanuts cartoons that I wanted to pull in to describe sort of like my key takeaway, on the left we have Charlie Brown and Snoopy. Charlie Brown talking to Snoopy. You know what you need to do? You need to learn to obey commands. Sit. Then Snoopy walks off, comes back. Snoopy sits in a nice recliner. And then no Peanuts cartoon involving the word command would be complete without Lucy Van Pelt. So we have Snoopy playing with the ball on the right here. Lucy, what do you think you're doing? Get out of here. Snoopy walks off and then turns back. You know, when the cat plays with the ball of string, they think it's cute. Early Peanuts. So again, this is the Knesset. I thought it was also fitting to have a picture of the Knesset given the word command. in terms of an overview of what happens in Parshat Tzav, I would say two main things. This is like in the content of the Parsha. One, God instructs Moses about the sacrifices that are to be offered in the Mishkan, the tabernacle, the traveling sanctuary that the Israelites are taking with them. Two, Moses consecrates Aaron and his sons into the priesthood. So God's instructing Moses around sacrifices, and then Moses sanctifies, consecrates Aaron and his sons so that there's more than just Moses who can actually accomplish these responsibilities that God articulates to the people. So, big ideas. One, we've already covered. This is just sort of orienting ourselves before we go further. This Shabbat, Shabbat Gadol, three primary possibilities. The ones we'll get into next. Two, the concept of the Ner Tamid, the eternal light, comes from here. And then we'll talk more about Leviticus as a priestly text and how Tzav is an example, or one of the characteristics that features prominently in Parshat Tzav. So, as for our Ner Tamid, oh, there we go. This is one of the sculptures in the city of David. This is early on in the Parsha, 5th and 6th verses, chapter 6, Leviticus, God speaking to Moses. So bear in mind, the first main thing that happens in the Parsha, God is going to instruct Moses as to what the sacrifices that need to happen. And God says, the fire upon the altar shall keep burning on it, it shall not go out. Eish Tamid, a perpetual fire shall burn upon the altar. It shall not go out. So this is, you may have seen it before, you may have heard it before, or may remember this common phrasing where it's command and then, lo tishba, that it's reiterating. This is very important. It shall not go out. Eish Tamid. And the question I wanted to ask was, Eish Tamid is what the text says. Many of us know it in Reform settings as the Ner Tamid, the eternal light that's going to almost always be prominently featured above the Aron HaKodesh, the Ark in sanctuaries. In the text, it's an Eish Tamid, a perpetual fire. And the question I wanted to frame and ask all of us was, what keeps your fire burning? In my case, I'll share an example and then I'd love to hear from y'all. Doing this together, it's a big lift. I love learning. I love Jewish text. I love etymology. Love our history. But already, and I love putting these things together and having this conversation, but wow, I feel very personally enriched from what all have shared. Hence, wanting to ask this question too. So who else would like to share what keeps your fire burning? Yeah, Merle?
I think in our case, it's that our family is here and we can celebrate not just Shabbat, but everything they do together.
If I remember right, from where you were describing Passover earlier, they're not too far away, right? Like just up the street or some such?
They're like 5 miles up the street.
Okay. That's fantastic.
We do a lot of kid stuff. If I disappear from things, it's because I usually get a last minute call that I have to pick up a grandchild or drop them off somewhere. And
don't put words in your mouth. I'm picturing that's like, oh, well, don't threaten me with a good time.
Right.
Okay.
But I also think the fact that we can, no matter where we are, we can continually learn.
Thank you. Just checking. Anyone else? Yeah, Paulina?
He's giving the obligation of keeping the fire on to people. So he's erasing the idea that all this idol worshipping was involved with throwing even maiden to the fire, or your firstborn have to be sacrificed. And this way, it's no. You're supposed to bring special oil, yes, but there is no human sacrifices involved, and not even the animal in the beginning. They just talk about keeping the fire going, which means you can cut up a tree and throw it in there. You don't have to wait for somebody who pretends to be the son of a of a direct idol like Pharaoh, to keep those lights on, those fires on by his own people who would do all kind of, they threw a stick and it turned into a snake. And we have to remember what kind of a thing that they were doing there in order to keep control over the people. And here he says, here, you can do a fire, and the fire is not going to be turn off, because you will keep it burning. And that is giving the job to them again. You shall keep the fire burning. And you're gonna, and yes, he has the priest and the priest family, because you cannot altogether take them away from one task and present them with another. You have to have some kind of a bridge that will be introducing something to them, not in a way that it will be hard for them to understand or to receive. It had to be gradual. So yes, you want the fire, you're going to have the fire, but you are the one who's going to take care of it. People are going to do it. You don't want to do it, it's too hard, blah, blah, blah. So here is Aaron and his family, they'll help you. They'll be the one that's going to lead it. But there is no more mention of idols. And that's there again, the responsibility falls on people, on them. Pick somebody if you don't want to do it, if you're afraid or whatever. So you got the Aaron's family here, I'm giving you. They're going to do this. That's it. That's the way I look at it. Giving it to the people again and again and again. That's all.
I don't know if it's possible to underscore how much of a paradigm shift that was for like the way people were in this era, and I appreciate highlighting that. Oh, yes, Susan. I'm sorry that I was so rapid fire with it before. So this is if y'all ever visit or have the chance or have visited the city of David in Jerusalem, this is there's like when you walk in, there's like a sort of like reception banquet meeting space that's beautiful, and it has this beautiful sculpture there. And this is sort of like on the upstairs level before you can go down and see the archaeological works.
Where's the Ner Tameh? Your text.
Oh, actually, I don't know if there is one in this picture. That's actually a very good point. I'm sorry. I was so excited about the image, I did not put two and two together. I don't think
maybe the day that they discovered electricity.
I like it.
And what do you think the images are? I mean, it looks like a big wings.
Sure. Okay, so the resolution may or may not permit seeing it, but where my mouse is, this is sort of Jerusalem, and then this is sort of the bedrock.
On which it's built.
And if for those who have been, or if you ever have the chance to go, as you sort of right now, I'll explain in a minute. Right now, you come in at the top and you can descend and look at like the archaeological works that date back to the time of King David. I think that's why they have the rocks at the bottom here being so prominent, because if you go down 2 flights of stairs, you see these massive boulders that have been carved out in the supports and what they signify. But let me go further. This image here. So good. This, I'll take a brief minute because I think this is fascinating and amazing. There's a pool of water at the bottom of the hill. And if this is highly paraphrasing, it's highly fast, and I would love to teach all about it the entire time, but I'll try and do it in like 30 to 60 seconds. In the era when there were pilgrimages to the temple in Jerusalem, the routine was start at the bottom, do the equivalent of a mikveh in the pool, walk up to the Beit HaMikdash, to the temple. What you were looking at here, they're in the process of excavating the very streets that our ancestors walked every time there was a pilgrimage. And God willing, within all of our lifetimes, we will be able to do it too. I mean, as someone who likes history and likes us, this is like one of these jaw-dropping, like, wow type of experiences. So that's my 30-second rendition of what you're looking at here. So Parshat Tzav, Leviticus overall, not entirely, but it's primarily a priestly text, meaning it emphasizes the traditions of the temple priests who served, meaning who did the sacrifices until the temple was destroyed in either 586 or 587 before the Common Era. That was when the Babylonians came, and then most, but not, if not all, of the, let's say the priesthood, the upper crust, the wealth, the meaningful, the important people were exiled from Jerusalem and Eretz Israel to Babylon. So the Leviticus reflects a lot of those people, a lot of their writings. They cared deeply about this tradition because that was the center of their lives, and consequently their writing has some meaning. The way that they composed the biblical text has many characteristics that are somewhat unique to the priestly class. One of which is the use of this term colophon. So, what is a colophon? As an example, some of the most memorable colophon, they're sort of, I like the metaphor of a signpost. They're sort of saying, here's what's happening, here's what's happening, here's what's happening. Many of us are familiar with the introductions to the books, some of the books of the prophets, where it says the words of prophet blank from such and such place who prophesies concerning Israel in the reign of such and such secular leader. That's a colophon. They're a refrain. They help orient us as either, I have here, orient a reader or orient a listener, because for most of us, but not all, many of the time we hear it read, but oftentimes we're reading with our eyes, like, okay, here's what the words in the Tanakh are. But for a good chunk of the history, and when this text was composed, it was heard, meaning this was read out loud. So at the time they would use these colophons to be like, okay, here's what's happening. Words of so-and-so the prophet, and the audience that was hearing them would be like, okay, I get it. Now we're in the book of the prophets. We're going to need to hear this message. It helped orient people. It's as the educator in me likens this to an ancient form of direct instruction. Here is what's going to happen. Boom. So, as an example, in this parasha, perhaps the most prominent colophon is a refrain that goes Zot Torah blank. In a brief Hebrew note here, Torah is the construct state of Torah, which means Torah blank is the Torah of such and such. So it's the teaching, instruction, the law. We'll get into the text itself. Zot Torah ha'olah. This is the Torah of the burnt offering. This is the teaching of the burnt offering, the law. Another one shortly afterward from verse 11. Zot Torah hamincha. This is the Torah of the grain offering. Zot Torah hachatat. This is the Torah of the sin offering. Zot Torah ha'asham. Zot Torah zevach hashlishim. This is the sacrifice of well-being. That, if you can picture yourself hearing it, thank you. Zot Torah, Zot Torah, Zot Torah, Zot Torah. And the final one where it recaps them all. Zot Torah, ba, 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 ba. As a listener, if you were in a place where you and everyone around you was committed to, we have to memorize these things, we have to do them, this is integral to our being and our existence and our identity, this is helpful because it's saying, here's what you got to do, here's what you got to do, here's what you got to do. It's like, some of us use mnemonics like these, might be memorizing like the kingdom, phylum, etc. In biology. So this is a prominent call. It mirrors the speaking and teaching technique popularized by Dale Carnegie, not exclusive to him. Tell them what you're going to say. Tell them what you told them. So I don't think we have time for the question, but I see Panita, you have a hand. So why don't I hand it to you first?
Yeah, the root of the word Torah, it's yaro. Yaro means to shoot to a target. You have to reach a target. That's the root. Yud Resh Hey. Later on, you have hore, parent, more, teacher. But Torah, the teachings. But the root of the word yaro, that's the root. It means to shoot and meet the target. That's it. So
No,
I think
and
that explains a lot when you are looking at the teaching.
yes, teaching. Here. Great visual, great analogy.
Mhm.
In lieu of time, I think it is appropriate and fitting to skip. Oh, sorry. Let me do the quick recap. Shabbat Hagadol, that's today. Shabbat before Pesach. Thank you very much for celebrating it and learning it together. Wanted to wish you all a Chag Pesach Sameach, the Shabbat Shalom. Wishing you all a very joyous Passover. I couldn't ask for a better way to go into Shabbat myself. And lastly, a big thank you. This will be our last time learning in this specific setting together. It's been a true joy. The next time I'll see you, yours truly and Jeff Silverstein and I will both have been ordained. And I look forward to that next occasion. Thank you all so very much.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Mazel tov. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Thank
Shalom,
you.
and
Shalom.
Happy
congratulations.
Passover,
Thank you.
everyone.
Happy
You
Happy
too.
Passover.
Happy
Passover.
Passover. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Joy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too. Bye, Susan. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat
Thanks, Anna.
shalom.